dubbed the Desert Coliseum, the Sakir circuit serves as the battleground of choice for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Opened in 2004, this 5.4-kilometer circuit with its 3 DRS zones is a mecca of speed. But with a medley of tricky corners littered throughout, this track is not one to be taken lightly. Let's see where the chariots ran riot during Season 5's encounter at Bahrain. The complex of turns 8, 9 and 10 will be a pinch point during the race, evidenced last season by Kapil's failed advances on the Williams driver ahead. Furthermore, turns 1, 2 and 3 are a quick-fire trio, each unique in their own way, for catching out drivers, as seen when Danish, who gets caught out, sabotages the Mercedes. And finally, the pit straight will serve as a major overtaking point, as drivers look to maximize the exit out of the final right-hander and carry immense speed down to turn 1.
For your introductions.
Hello, good evening. My name is 8 Cylinders of Fury, and you are indeed watching IRC Season 6, Round 4 at Bahrain. This is Tier 1. Good evening. My name is 8 Cylinders of Fury, as I just mentioned, and I'm joined today by a returning member of the IRC commentary team. We have Rusty in the commentary box. Rusty, how are you doing, my friend?
Hello, 8 Cylinders. Super excited to be back in for the race in Bahrain today.
It's going to be a real spectacle, and we also have operating the cameras up in the commentary box here. We have Marinello, baby. How are you doing, Adil?
Hey, it's Linders. I'm doing well. Rusty, great to have you back, man.
Yep, absolutely. Super excited to be back, and couldn't have chosen for a better race to be back, in my opinion.
I was just going to say Bahrain is a great place to make a return.
Yep, absolutely.
It is indeed, gentlemen. We are now going to go quickly to the hot lap video around Bahrain.
Sorry about that, folks. There was an audio issue. We are now live on turn 3. If I may probably join you at the run-up to turn 4, the second DRS zone. Heavy braking and on throttle as early as you can. This is a fifth gear corner. The S section is probably one of the most exciting sections on the track. And down in the run down to turn 7, clip the apex. It's a bit of a tricky braking zone because you're downhill, but nothing compared to the tricky braking zone of the coming turn 9. And as I say that, I lock up slightly onto the start finish onto the third and final DRS straight. This DRS straight is not long enough for overtaking, but it still can lead to a bit of exciting moves because turn 9 is so tricky. Coming to the end of sector 2, do not touch the inside curb, because if you do so, you will be out in the wall. Try and clip the inside curb on the exit there, but I think you can see I suffer from a bit of understeer. And coming down to the final corner, use as much of the track as you can right until the white line, and maximize your exit for the long start finish straight. Sorry for the delayed start on the commentary on it, but I hope that this hot lap was exciting. Moving on.
I'd be a better person talking through the hot laps, but yeah, 8 Cylinder.
Yeah, it was. I don't think there's a more apt person to talk over a fast lap than the fastest man probably in IRC at any point in time. So, I think we can get into the session now. I think everybody's just about raring to go in the qualifying. But let's get started, guys. Rusty, what are your expectations for your return? What are you expecting in this race?
I think like Bahrain's a brilliant track in real life and in the sim world as well, because it just offers so many DRS zones. You can overtake in a bunch of places if you get a really good exit out of 13. And with DRS, you're almost guaranteed to get the overtake done in turn 1. And my second favorite thing about this track is, even if you get overtaken in turn 1, you have a chance to fight in turn 2, because I feel like the DRS detection zone is so beautifully placed at the exit of turn 1, I believe, or the entry, such that you will have the DRS onto the second straight and you can always get that position back. So how drivers negotiate turn 1, 2, 3, and how they're able to try and stay in front. I think that's probably going to define the race today.
What
in
do
my
you
opinion.
what do you think of the second DRS zone? Because that introduction into the second DRS zone has been widely sort of accredited by some and criticized by some as well. So what do you guys think of it?
Cylinder?
I believe by the second DRS zone you mean the one just after turn 3, right? So,
Yep.
I mean, F1 is generally, in the past couple of years, they've only been introducing more and more DRS zones to improve the standard of racing, but I think that's more of a bandage rather than a full-time fix. I think, when it regards to maybe Bahrain alone, the car is I would say fairly unsettled on the exit of turn 3, especially if you don't get a clean exit. So, if you're activating your DRS, they're only asking for more instability, but I'm clearly not the expert on this.
Yep.
Being here in the commentary box, but as I was talking a little bit before, introducing more DRS zones is just a bandage to improve racing. I feel like the regulations coming up next year will truly change that. But we are getting underway in the session here, and if we were talking briefly over the weather forecast, it does look like a clear qualifying and a clear race.
Interesting to see multiple people out on softs, because I feel like this track is an easy, medium, hard. I think like the advantage you get through the one-stopper is like much greater when compared to some of the other tracks around the calendar.
Yep, I couldn't agree more in terms of but at the same time, Rusty, just to sort of bring in some experience from last season, we don't really put in valid lap times probably until the last 5 minutes of a session, and I used to use the first 10 minutes of a session to just warm up and practice a little bit more, or get the maximum track time possible to really pull out that one solid lap on a harder compound tire which doesn't really have optimal grip. So yeah, I don't think the first 10 minutes of the session may be completely representative, but I do know for a fact there are a few drivers who are opting for the soft to hard strategy.
You reckon?
Yeah, go on.
I feel like soft to hard towards the end of the race, it could be pretty damaging. I'm not sure, but from my experience on this game, the hards also fall away towards the end if you're trying to do a one-stopper from soft to hard. I believe the softs last up till lap 7 to 9.
Softs, yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Ooh, as we say that, Procker has a Sebastian Vettel moment in that Ferrari, almost.
It's his first season, of course, in not his first season IRC, but his first season in the Ferrari. He was in the Haas last year, so I think he'll be happy being a Ferrari fan that he gets to represent the outfit from Maranello, as a certain Maranello sits with us here in the commentary box.
Yep. That being said, he finished pretty high up in the championship last season, but this year it's going to be a pretty good fight, I'm sure, between the likes of Prakhar, Myth, Eccentric, Moto, because these four drivers are truly driving out of their skin right now.
I think also those four drivers represent sort of different driving styles. I think Prakhar represents more consistency over speed. He's also vouched and preached consistency over speed, and you can see that in his driving style. Very few penalties, and he just keeps it clean for a majority of the race, and that usually works out in his favor. Whereas Eccentric, Myth, these guys are raw outright pace, and these guys can go fast, and we only saw that earlier in the season at Baku, where Myth was nearly 7/10 faster in qualifying over the other drivers. So
exactly, Myth is a specialist on street circuits. I think my race with him in Singapore was probably very, very exciting. Genuinely one of the best racers I've raced against. But moving on to the session, Charles Leclerc, he's the Tier 2 champion from last season and got promoted and got the Tier 1 seat this year due to his performances. And he's gone provisional pole, but it doesn't look like Moto and Prakhar are actually pushing on those softs, so it probably is a case of sandbagging, major sandbagging by the Ferrari. It's nice to see actual sandbagging and just not a lack of pace in a Ferrari, I have to be honest.
Yeah, I just believe they're running high fuel loads even though they're out on softs, or they're just uh, going off throttle on the straights. But talking about Trucker and the point about consistency, like I think over the course of the last season as well, he was probably Mr. Consistent, and that shows this season as well, right? Like he's the only driver to be on the podium both races so far, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be his target for this race as well. And last season as well, I believe he did finish on the podium. I think he finished P3, while Russell drove a brilliant race on the one-stopper to win the race last time round. So I'm pretty sure he's going to try and want to do better and win the race this time round.
I'm sure. I know for a fact though, a few people on the grid today really love this track. But it's also not as popular in terms of the amount of practice that they've done. Also, we are coming into this with a 2-week break. So are the drivers a bit rusty? Do you think?
I don't think so, because Eccentric's just done a 125.3, and I actually just saw the times from last season, and the pole time last season was 125.5. I mean, it is the same game. There are some updates, but a 125.3, that's 2 tenths, and he's already quicker. He's still got 11 minutes, which means the track is going to get so much better towards the end of the session.
Eccentric is looking like a champion elect this season. He's really driving well, and he does seem to be the man to beat if pure pace is all that we're going by. Because he pulled away in the first race of the season. He actually pulled away in Austria. He pulled away from Amamith, which is I can tell you is no easy feat.
Also, it's hard to forget that Eccentric is on a controller, which I feel like may not be as big a factor on a game like F1, where it's sort of the game design is generally it's leaning towards making it as equal as possible, regardless of what platform you're on. But it's not something that you can dismiss very easily, because it is quite difficult to be fast and consistent on controller. And I think with the varying setups that we've seen in IRC, drivers using, Chris Bai from IRC used to have a hybrid setup. I'm not quite sure exactly what he had, but
a mouse and a controller, yes.
Yeah, pretty funny, pretty interesting, pretty eccentric setup, as we're talking about the man on provisional pole right now. So it's not something to be discounted. Could you chip in a little bit on that, Mara?
Yeah, of course. I think the controller is, and I don't mean to take anything away from Eccentric, it's very difficult to be fast on a controller, but if you know the mechanics of how to use your hands, cue joke, but I'm not going to probably say something to support the under 18 audience. But anyway, if you had to sort of balance the two, the controller is the better device on this game, and not by a small margin. In fact, I know many people who've gone back from a wheel to a controller, depending on the track. So if you look at certain tracks, and I think the first half of the season you may see Eccentric pulling away slightly because of their tracks like Austria, Bahrain, which tend to be controller heavy, but then you will come to tracks which could be more wheel weighted as it stands. But yeah, nothing taking away from any of the drivers. At the end of the day, you're only as good as you're not only as good as your device. You still have to put in your practice, and Eccentric seems to have done that with that 125.3.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with that, but it'll be interesting to see. Amit's done some of his feeler laps on those mediums. I think he's put about 2-3 laps, and now he should be out on the soft zone, because you only get one set of mediums, which I've never understood. Trucker all over the place right now.
He's really pushing that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Do you feel like all of that oversteers is because of his setup, or is he genuinely struggling right now?
I think that he's obviously not been practicing in Formula 1 as much as he was earlier, which is why we may see a few mistakes from Mr. Consistent. But I really hope he can take the fight. But it doesn't seem to be setup based, because he seems to be getting understeer in corner entry, but on corner exit it just seems to be the lack of feeling on throttle, which I would put down to practice.
There's also the added factor of something that I'm not sure maybe you might have heard of, but he's recently got himself a new set of pedals, so maybe he's getting accustomed to those as well on F1, which he, in his own words, doesn't play as often these days as he'd like to.
Exactly. But moving on to the two McLarens, they seem to have both gone for a soft strategy. That being said, the lap by Aditya is actually a blistering lap on those mediums. If you think about the pace difference between the mediums and the softs, he's put in a pretty much equivalent lap to eccentric.
I'm not sure if he
Oh,
did those
I'm
on
so
the
sorry. I'm so
mediums,
sorry.
yeah.
You're right. You're right. The only person who's actually put in a valid lap on the medium tires are Myth and Propi. I do know Black Sheep can go into the 126 earlies because I have practiced with him. But yes, and that being said, and as I say, that Moto takes the mediums to a 126.3. Eccentric
I think it
is
faster still.
the man is on a mission.
I think only on F1 2020 will you see a Williams on pole. I mean, but any car in the hands of Eccentric is going to be setting blistering lap times, isn't it?
Couldn't agree more.
Black Sheep on a super good lap as well, gets a good exit out of 14 and 15 coming across the line. Yep.
Ooh, P3 for now. Unless he can improve further on his time, a 126.1.
He's not going to be happy with that lap time, and he takes a beautiful. That's a new line. Haven't seen that before, but the drivers do tend to find the best sort of every single advantage that they can, which is great to see. Who's on a hot lap right now? 8 cylinders.
I'm just having a look down, and I think maybe Patnaik has been a man who's recently been catching my eye. He's new to IRC, but he's been putting in some good performances. Seems to have a couple of. He seems to put in a good race weekend, but seems to have consistency issues. As I said, it's a case of getting used to it and getting used to IRC. I mean, I'm not entirely sure how much experience he has, but he seems to be an incredibly fast driver, and it's going to be interesting to see how he evolves over the course of the season. He's going to be an interesting prospect to keep an eye out for.
Yep. Moving on, the man who joined the session a bit late but luckily has gotten a car. As we say that the game is on, I'm a myth. He has basically just laid down the gauntlet. He stole Eccentric. This is not going to be a repeat of Austria. I'm coming for you, my man. This has been a first time in the F1 2020 game that an IRC driver's been into the 124s. So great lap by Amamith right there in the Haas. So it seems to be a Ferrari-powered car actually doing well in Bahrain in 2020. What do you think of that?
Remember, this is the same exact emotions that was flowing through the commentary box when he went nearly a second faster than Eccentric in Baku qualifying, and we were just in the commentary box, me and Masoom were just talking about where the hell did he find time, because I mean it's been pretty well established that Baku is a difficult circuit to get absolutely right, and the same is for Bahrain. On paper it seems like it's fairly simple, but there are a couple of corners there that can catch you out. Turns 1, 2 and 3, very easy to encounter oversteer there. It's easy to lose the car. Also this corner here, there's a lot of difficult corners on this track, on what seems to be a simple track on paper, but I mean it's never simple in F1, is it?
Yep. Bahrain is not a forgiving track this time around in this game cycle, but it definitely is one of the most enjoyable to drive. Moving on to normal pro player, is he on a cooldown lap? I think he's on a cooldown lap. Yeah,
Yeah.
But yeah, great lap by him too.
Pretty good showing if the Rebel boys can keep it at P3, P4. We've seen Nomo Pro player hunt down other drivers with a teammate, so it'll be interesting to see if those two can stay together in the top 5 and then see how the race starts, because probably on paper Eccentric and Myth have the pace on them, but we've seen Nomo Pro player, he does have a lot of experience in this game, and sometimes, especially on power hungry tracks like this, it's all about your ERS management, as we see Charles Leclerc taking a nice Saturday night stroll along the Bahrain circuit.
Yep. that sector 2 is actually, the start of sector 2 is probably the most is at the point on the track where the tires are under the most load. You're literally pushing, you're just chucking it in and praying that, and begging and praying that your best friend the car will just stay gripped on the circuit. And in this case, Charles Leclerc seems to have has to have a bit of an off, but I think he has time to get back to the pits and go out one last time.
Yeah,
I would also pay attention to the guy currently in P14 right now, who's struggled to find himself any kind of consistency. He's currently on a flying lap. He's gone up. He's gone green in sector 1.
But-
He'll be fairly unenthusiastic about his chances from P14, but I mean,
8 cylinders.
the driver's
I sort of want to disagree with you there. I think he's intentionally not put in a lap because he's on the mediums right now. He's one of the few drivers who have actually opted for a mediums to hard strategy. So I'm completely not surprised.
Do you think maybe Brucker is going for or with the aim of starting somewhere around the back of the grid?
I don't think he can get above probably P7, P6. You can get a high 25 if you put in a great lap, but an early 26 is okay. I seem to have made a mistake somewhere in sector 2 over there, but an early 26 is ideally what you would be aiming for as a medium runner.
Yeah, Tucker coming out of turn 13 had understeer and he had to lift off so that the game didn't invalidate his lap, and that's probably cost him at least 5 to 6 tenths for sure, because you've got such a long straight coming out of 13 up to 14. So not sure if he's got enough fuel for another lap, and if I don't think he'll be able to make it around.
Yep. Helium's retired from the session in the pits. I think he just doesn't have the time to go out one more time. Couple is really cutting it close. He's just about made it out, and he's cut. Talk about cutting it close. He's cut turn 1. Fantastic. But Eccentric and Myth are both out, and I'm going to stay on board, if it's okay with you guys, on the battle for P1 and 2, because that's, I guess, what everyone wants to see.
Yep, absolutely. Babaji also retiring in the pits, or actually that's the exit of 15. That's where Aitken spun around.
Yeah. His teammate is coming across the line now. Hopefully Baba's car is gone by the time Black Sheep goes through. But the Red Bull seems to be getting good slipstream down the start from the straight. I'm looking at the track map, folks, but I'm going to stay on board with Eccentric. Let's see his delta at the end of sector 1. Seems to be a fairly clean lap so far. Kisses the apex on turn 3. Avoids the curb, maximizes the traction, and that's a purple sector 1 by a tenth and a half. He is going for it.
Yep, and there's literally nothing separating the two drivers right now.
Yep. Myth is still on the fag end of his outlap, but he's going to be aware that Eccentric will improve because the track is scaling up significantly. Eccentric navigates turn 9 far better than I did in the hot lap, and in the run up to this, in the second DRS straight, clips the inside curb, avoids the outside. He is genuinely putting the car in all the right places.
So it's all the makings of a very fast lap. Oh, but he's a little down in sector 2.
I think that's fine. He lost probably 200s, but he did put in a very, very good sector 2 the last time around. So using
We'll be down to the line here as Eccentric and Myth are both on fast laps. We'll see exactly where they finish. Eccentric coming across the line now.
He's gone P1.
He is on pole. He is on pole.
Myth has invalidated. This is the session over. Myth has invalidated, and he will start the session in P2.
Well, that means that Eccentric is our man on pole position today. Fantastic lap from him there.
Unless the likes of Aditya, Propi, or someone else can go do anything about it. But I have to say that's a fairly good lap by Aditya. He's gone faster than last season's pole lap.
We will see as he just rounds comes across the.
He's on his in lap right now.
Oh, yep, he's on his in lap. Good catch. Black Sheep. I think that's the session over, apart from maybe Couple. Couple is 6 tenths up on his time on the medium tires. So he's basically timed it to perfection. He's copied Prakhar in the strategy, but he seems to be improving by a significant amount of time. It's a little slow into the last corner, but yeah, that's a 27-1. He's not going to be happy with that. But that's our qualifying results for the day.
Moto on the mediums, P8. We'll have that.
He is a factor in this race. The mediums to hard strategy is vastly overpowered. I mean, better than the softs to hards, because at the end of about 5 laps, your softs are basically like half a second slower than your mediums, and you will see Moto passing the entire grid pretty quickly. And the mediums actually retain their pace, so the delta between the new hard tires once the soft runners spit and the used mediums is not that much. So hopefully Moto will be on fresher hards and be able to push towards push much harder in the second stint.
Moto is gonna want the front few to keep fighting the first few laps, keep stumbling over each other so that he's right at the tail of them. And once his tires kick in, he should be in a pretty good spot if he can have a flawless race.
Yep. 8 cylinders. We haven't heard from you in a bit. What do you think about Moto's race? How crucial is the start for him, considering he's got soft runners sandwiching him?
Just been sitting back and listening to you guys break down this qualifying. It's been riveting to listen to. But if we're talking about Moto, well, being on a slightly slower tyre, he will look to maximize position on the start. I think with people skirmishing ahead of him, it's going to be important to make up as many positions as possible, because he's going to have people, if some of the soft guys fall back a little bit, he's going to have people right on his diffuser from lap 1, and that won't be good for his tyres because he's going to be playing the long game. And I think that's going to be a similar strategy to what even drivers behind him, starting a little bit far away from the podium. I think that's going to be their mindset as well. It's going to be to stay away from the action as much as possible and leave it all the way till the end.
Yep. I do hope that he can retain his positions from the cars behind. I think that's Patnaik, who's directly behind him, because that's going to be pivotal in his effort to glory, if I may dramatize it a bit.
F1's all about drama, so I think we can accept that from you.
Yep.
F1 is a spectacle after all, as we are just waiting for everyone to load into the race session here. What's going to be going through, Rusty, if you don't mind me asking you something.
Yeah, go on.
What's going to be going through Eccentric's mind going into turn 1, knowing that he's got Mitt sitting right on his diffuser there?
Yeah, Mitt's gonna have the inside line, but Eccentric should have the better line through. It's all about the reaction speed, I believe, and if you are able to limit your wheel spin. And I feel like that's where having the pedals might help you a little more, because I feel like on the pedals, at least I just switched from the controller to the pedals a month or so ago. So I just feel like at the race start, I'm able to do so much better, because you can control your throttle slightly much better on the pedals. And it's both of these drivers are so quick, it's going to come down to small things like that.
We've definitely got a spectacle of a race ahead of us. But I think just before the race starts here, can we get some predictions from the two of you?
I'm going to say that Myth will hang on to Eccentric for the first stint, but I think Eccentric will nab it in the end, because he's been putting in the time and practice does matter in race trim.
Well, we'll see how that pans out. We are going on the formation lap now, so if you are listening in the chat, do let us know who's your bet on to take the race win today. And also on the topic of doing good performances, Mara, you're one to start from the back and put in a grandstand performance. What's going to be going through the minds of some of the guys starting outside the top 10?
Well, these if you look at drivers like Babaji, Prakhar, Kapil, Freeman, they're vastly experienced drivers. I know Freeman doesn't race the game as much, but if you look at the likes of Prakhar especially, he's a very mature driver. I fully expect him to let drivers go in the start. I don't expect him to fight things too hard, because he knows he's playing the long game here. I missed the third podium spot earlier in terms of predictions. If Moto can stay safe, I think Eccentric, Myth and Moto will round up the podium. So all three of them, as long as they stay out of trouble, the medium runners, I'm talking about Prakhar, Babaji and Moto, they should have a pretty good race ahead of them.
Yep, so some of our comments say that, a few are supporting Freeman out there, a couple saying that safety car is going to win. Interesting, but do you guys think there'll be a safety car? I don't think we'll see a safety car today. Like, my bet is on not having a safety car.
I think we may see one. Bahrain actually has a much higher chance of a safety car coming out. I don't know why, but even if a car spun off outside the track limits, they tend to bring out a safety car at times on this track. Don't know why, that's just the way Codemasters works, but it'll just make the race more interesting.
To tell you what, night races are an absolute spectacle on this game. I mean, really has become eye candy in the past couple of years in night races. Just a little off-topic inclusion there.
Yep, and a few of these cars look particularly good, and however much it pains me to say this, being a huge Ferrari fan, the Mercedes does look, that shiny black looks pretty nice under the lights.
I couldn't agree more. If you could go on board, it just looks so much better seeing from inside the car. It just feels so good under the lights.
Yep, but
The shine, the patina.
as we say that, the
Yep.
grid is lining up, so 8 cylinders. I'm going to leave it to you to take us away off the start.
Of course, there's all the cars lining up, a couple of them coming around the final corner now. Everyone eager to get the best start possible. As the grid auto forms itself, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. And away we go. Eccentric gets a pretty good start there, but the Mercedes in P3 of Aditya gets a super start as well. A couple of drivers just getting a little bit side by side here as we head down to turn 1. Eccentric, mega start there from him, pretty much uncontested into the first turn. Coming out of turn 2 here, everybody keeping it fairly clean. 2 cars going side by side there. Myth and Aditya getting briefly helter-skelter for the position there. I think Myth does manage to stay ahead. Couple of position exchanges at the back there. Couple making up a couple of positions at the start. Black Sheep as well. Seems to be a pretty hectic start there. Ooh, the Mercedes and the Haas going right at it all the way through this first sector, heading into the second sector now. Eccentric fairly uncontested at the start.
Meanwhile, Pro Player lost traction at the start finish and crashed into the wall. But what a start by Aditya. I think he had to give back the position because he got it outside the track. Hello 2021. But Myth and him are going to be fighting, and that's just helped Eccentric already build up a second on those two.
I think the commentator's curse has struck very early on in this race, as Aditya has already picked up a time penalty. Not entirely sure how many seconds this was. I think it might have been 3, as there's an Alfa Romeo there. Kapile spinning out, coming out of... Ooh, and getting very close to Baba there as he just comes out of turn 10, I believe.
Yep, that's turn 11 and 12. So coming around, he's going to have to pit. No more Pro Player, not sure what the damage is for him. But Aditya got his penalty, I think, by turn 7. So like because of the fight with Prakhar, both of them were all over the track limits. Moto, unfortunately, on those mediums seems to have picked up damage somewhere and heads into the pits. But up front, we're going to wait for the game to sort itself out. I'm pretty sure that's not the order. But there's quite the train. Some of these cars are close by, and it actually looks like Myth has caught up to Eccentric on the minimap at least. I'm pretty sure that's less than a second right now.
Also, briefly for a second, that couple has gone up to P1, although I think that's just the timing tree acting up a little bit. Or has he actually gone up to P1?
No, that's just the game. Give it a couple of laps. We are soon going to be paying 4,000 for this, so have fun, lads.
They've taken away region pricing, haven't they, for the F1 game? Yeah.
Yep, they have. But
it's going to be a flat rate for everyone worldwide.
Challenge everything.
We'll discuss that in a bit. But, Amit, I feel like really hasn't pushed yet. He's just trying to stay within that 1 second gap. And we've seen him do this in the past as well. Can we just quickly go on board Eccentric to see his ERS and to try and see how much he's been pushing? Yeah. So Eccentric spent about 30% more ERS. So feels like Amit has the race pace for now, because even though he was caught up in that battle, he's been able to close down 5/10ths onto Eccentric without using a lot of ERS.
Yeah, this is this I think is definitely going to hurt Eccentric, because now Myth can just run along in his DRS and basically control at which point he would like to overtake the Williams driver. So it is going to be a close fight, but Eccentric does seem to be on the back foot right now. Yeah.
On that topic of following cars, Mara, how easy is it to follow a car around Bahrain?
I actually feel that you can be about 7, 8, 10 slower than another driver, even more than that at times, and yet maintain and then get pulled along in DRS. That's how powerful the DRS is around this circuit. So I have to say that it is difficult to follow at certain parts. Like you do struggle into the heavy braking zones and this section of the track which Helium is going through, but by no means is it. But the DRS sort of makes up for all that and much more.
I feel like the back straight out of 13 itself allows you, because of the slipstream, I feel like also the DRS between 10 and 11, it pretty much allows you to make up for all the time lost between the exit of during the entry of sector 2.
Yeah,
I mean, that's really under the assumption that you haven't fallen out of DRS region or DRS range in that sector. Then yes, it is. You are right. It's a big chance there to recoup the time that you've lost going through those that complex of corners.
It felt like Myth either tried to make a move or he was just a tad bit late, but coming out of turn 1, he had to take the long way around to ensure that he does not have any contact with Eccentric.
Yep.
But we talked about this, Myth actually catching up to Eccentric through that fast section in sector 2, turns 5 to 7, and he's now 6/10 behind. Cut it down to 4, but I think he had a bad run out of turn 8.
Yep. Just a quick question for both of you in the box today. We have Moto going, obviously having an unfortunate lap 1 incident. That's totally our fault, Moto. We basically cursed you, but but in essence, he's chosen to go onto the soft tires. I cannot see a scenario where going onto the soft tire is the optimal strategy here.
I'll tell you what's the best. I'll tell you what's going on in his mind right now. He's literally every lap, all he's doing is praying for a safety car. That's literally the only scenario where he wins right now.
But wouldn't you think that going onto the hard tires or the medium tires and going long into the race will better aid that effort and to extend his stint as long as possible? And oh my god, Myth replicates turn 1 on lap 4 and 5. So
I mean, I just feel like Myth's braking point, he's not varying it, because when you're braking right behind a car, you're braking because of the lack of downforce. You do need to go that little bit deeper. He's got to get on that brake, feather it slightly earlier than he is right now. Oh, we got
a retirement, and that is in sector 2. I'm going to go on board Babaji because I think he's coming.
It's a VSC. We had someone on the chat say that there will be a VSC this race.
But if I may say, we could see on the background with Baba's car, the Renault is in pieces. It's got, I think, the entire left side of the car is pretty much missing. And
Can we go on? Oh, it's gone. Yeah, sorry, go on.
And Propi's picked up a 5 second because of a collision with Freeman. Hopefully he hasn't picked up damage as well. But yeah, that's a bit sad.
No, his car seems to be fine, so I think he's good to go apart from the penalty that he's just received. Unfortunate for Patnaik. I was hoping that he put in a great performance today, being a new boy to IRC and to Tier 1 as well, but unlucky for him, you were talking about his car being in pieces. Must have been a pretty high-speed collision there somewhere at the top of the hill.
He's timed the safety VSC sort of ending to perfection, and he has gotten ahead of Eccentric before the braking zone, but Eccentric can't come back because Myth goes deep at turn 1 yet again. The man seems to be struggling. We know Eccentric is not sort of afraid of a dive in.
Eccentric goes down the inside again, coming right back at Myth. This battle is absolutely fantastic.
Yep. But what a restart by Myth, using all of his experience to perfection, times that delta and gets that position. That's probably one of the best virtual safety car restarts I've ever seen.
Yep.
I mean, I think Myth was Eccentric, my bad. Eccentric was caught napping a bit there, but had Myth still retains the lead of the race. But do you think maybe that he's given up this advantage that he had of just being able to stay in Eccentric's DRS? Do you think he's given that up a bit by sort of, I wouldn't say prematurely taking the lead, but maybe making the most of an opportunity that was presented to him?
Well, I certainly think that Eccentric's going to come back at him pretty quickly. It all depends on how long Myth chooses to stay in front for, whether he burns his ERS now or whether he just drives normally, drives around the track knowing it's a long race. Because Eccentric is actually close enough to come back at him. Let's see what happens. Eccentric does not...
to the
yeah.
overlaps.
Eccentric is not burning his overtake. He's not going for the overtake here. Mature driving by the Williams.
Williams and Fast fighting it out up front. Oh, what a sight. Meanwhile, Black Sheep, Charleroi and Wilster G fighting three-way for the final podium spot right now. Black Sheep keeping those two at bay for now. Should have it for another lap at least.
Yeah.
As Mara did predict earlier, Black Sheep has had a fantastic start there, and he's definitely right on the pace of the drivers, not only in front of him but also behind him. But I think his tyre advantage may be coming to an end soon in a couple of laps because, well, he's not really a tyre advantage, but his tyre situation looks to be worsening, as would all the other drivers on soft tyres right now.
Yep. Let's take a mid-race sort of breather for a second. Who do you guys feel are the biggest gainers in the race so far? Of course, Myth and Eccentric are destined to battle to the end, but apart from that, we have a few drivers make up a few spots. Who do you think are the biggest winners?
I think so far, I'm sorry, I'll just go through this. So far, I actually just noticed that Trucker is actually on the hards. I know that he's 14 seconds behind the leader, but I feel like from how his quali panned out to be P6 on those hards is pretty good right now.
All three drivers dive into the pits consecutively. Ooh, getting a little too close for comfort there, going into the pits there, between the Racing Point and the Red Bull just behind him. As we do see, because of the three drivers ahead of him taking a pit stop, Brakke on the hard tyres is now up into the final podium position. It's worked out fantastically well for him here in the race.
Yep, and also the fact that the other three who are in contention for the podium have now committed to a two-stopper. He could, if he continues to have a good race, he could potentially be in the podium places.
Yep. Just the field settling down a bit here. There seems to be a battle developing here, as we saw going into the pits, a battle developing coming out of the pits for P8, which Moto I think seems to be about to be caught up in a couple of laps' time.
I don't know what happened at the pits, but Charleroi lost that position in the pits because I think it was Black Sheep, Charleroi and Wilster G, but Charleroi comes out behind the other two, but he did go in for the mediums.
I'm surprised that all three of these drivers have gone or rather have opted for a two-stop race, because not only do they have to catch Prakhar once and overtake him, they'll basically have the same pit window. But as I say that, Eccentric has gone down the inside of Myth. Myth comes back and they both collide. There's damage on Amomith's car. Oh my god, this has really gone south for both drivers. I wonder if Eccentric has damage too. Can you confirm that? I think you have the telemetry on your screen.
Let's clean on the screen. He's got both his end plates, but Myth clearly with some wing damage.
Yeah, that's he's gonna have to pit this lap.
Myth has a damaged right front wing.
That is a shame.
Well, to match each other's pace, they had to come together, and one driver's sabotaged this race a little more than the other, but it could have ended much worse for both of them.
And Mitch must be kicking himself. He had all the ERS in the world, but for some reason he's saving all of it. Not quite sure why.
I think he wasn't expecting Eccentric to go for a move down there, because he does seem to have been caught out on turn-in, but still a bit anxious to see what exactly happened. Either way, that pretty much brings an end. The race is the race has pretty much died down at the front because of one moment. It just shows how much of a game of inches Formula 1 really is. Anyway, yeah, sorry, go ahead, 8 cylinders.
Now, I was just going to say, this plays really well into Prakhar's hands after he wouldn't have expected himself to be so far up so early on in the race, but now definitely on his mind, that podium's going to be weighing heavily, because now the opportunity's opened up, the door's right wide open for him to walk through. So there's got to be a thought in his mind now that, okay, maybe we started at the back, but we can only think about what position we're in right now as Eccentric hits and Bracker inherits the race lead.
Yep, I don't think Myth got his front wing changed. Can you still see damage?
I think he did. I think he did. He did get his front wing changed, and that's why he's come out behind all of this traffic. Just look at the traffic in
Oof.
front of him.
He just
1,
about
2,
makes
3,
it out of the
4.
pits ahead of Madhav, Shalalak.
Yeah,
Yep, he just about
but still
made it
he's
out
got
ahead
4
of
cars
Charlotte.
between him and Eccentric now.
Yep.
And these cars are by no means slouches in their own right, so it's going to be a challenge for Myth if he wants to, again, contest for this podium, or more importantly, the race win.
But at the same time, all these cars have, apart from, actually all of these cars have to pit again. So, if he catches, if they pit before he catches them, that could be a blessing in disguise, really.
But I don't quite think he'll be able to catch them right now, because I think Moto will be pitting soon, but Wilster and Black Sheep have fresh softs. They've already done their pit stop and undercut Myth, so it's going to be a few laps before it gets to that stage.
We saw a lot of strategy on offer last weekend at the, not last weekend, 3 weeks ago at the real life F1 race. The undercut, or rather the overcut, proved to be very effective for Lewis Hamilton. Came out nearly 15 seconds or 10 or so seconds ahead of Verstappen by the time the pit windows ended. So maybe we'll see a little more of that today in the race.
That Red Bull noises in the background. But Wilster does have the DRS. Not quite sure if he'll go for a move right here in turn 4, probably saving it for another lap.
As there's a time penalty for one of the McLarens, it's Baba. He's picked up a 3-second time penalty. After repeated warnings, probably a case of track limit extension.
Yep, crucially Baba is being caught by his teammate, and given the fact that Black Sheep's on fresh soft tires, we may see team orders in effect.
Yep,
We will
and
see Baba just suspiciously turn his wheel to the left on the straights.
Well, it'll be a very thin line between letting Black Sheep go and staying safe to Wilster. So let's see how well they can play this.
so if I was a McLaren, if I was in that VC, it would all be about Baba giving DRS to Black Sheep and braking a little early on the inside into turn 1 and trying to sandwich himself between Black Sheep and Wilster.
I think crucially Black Sheep's gotten
See how
DRS here.
well the team orders get
Yeah.
executed here, if they are going to be.
Now if Baba can know he can't keep Wilster behind him. Oof.
McLaren driver. Ooh, contact there.
Did he get damage?
Almost, but good save in my opinion from Baba to prevent that from getting any worse.
Yep. I think Baba felt a bit hard done over there by being the nice guy. But either way, moving in, Kapil seems to have gained a few positions. I think it's in the pit lane. Oh yes, Moto seems to have pitted onto the hard tires now. Again, surprised by that decision. We have a yellow flag. That's a McLaren off. That's Babaji off into the wall. Now this time he definitely has damage on those hard tires, which
Pretty much ruined his race.
yeah, pretty much.
Now he's got to do a 2-stopper. I don't quite think the mediums will last till the end. So, soft or medium soft? If you're trying to salvage something from this race right now.
I would just probably go on to a set of mediums and try and take them to the end.
There were some interesting strategies on offer during the last couple of races on IRC. I believe Charles went on a very interesting strategy at Baku, where he decided to go on the softs very early and try to make the most of that situation. But unfortunately, as predictable, it didn't work out well for him. So, if anything, strategies do play a large role. It's going to be important to select the right one.
Yep, Formula 1 is a game of chess.
very high speed chess though. And chess itself.
Yep. Wilster is right on the back of Black Sheep right now. And okay, it seems to be Cotton under DRS, but at the same time, this seems to be the battle battle to stay on board with, because these two have been at it for the entirety of the race, pretty much.
Yep, absolutely.
A little bit sideways there from Wilster. A little bit of fractional time lost there as he tries to follow Black Sheep through turn 9. Oh, not turn 9. Deep apologies. Turn 10. How crucial is it to get turn 9 and 10 correctly in order to get a brilliant run down the straight?
I wouldn't say it's the most important corner on the track. However, it's definitely the toughest to get right. So I tend to leave a lot of time on the table in race trim just to brake a bit early and make sure I get the right line. Because if you're off on the curb, it will, number one, unsettle your car because the tires are completely unloaded at that point of time, and you will lose time all the way down the straight. So it's a very crucial corner, but yeah, it's probably the toughest on the track to get right.
Definitely.
Let's take a look at how their ERS is faring. Both of them are fairly similar, although as predictable, Black Sheep being the leading car, he is down on ERS by about 10%.
Absolute defending from him.
Yep.
I mean, Black Sheep being the driver ahead, not really having much age from the car ahead, eccentric in terms of DRS. He's, going to be defending his position purely on ERS and changing the fuel modes. So it's going to be interesting to see how he defends from Wilster.
Super
Mara,
close
how's your boy Moto doing?
High advantage clearly showing right now as they break into turn 9 and 10. Does dive down the inside and gets the move done out of turn 10. That takes a lot of guts.
Yep.
But he's made it stick, and he counted on Couple to be a good driver. Kimi-esque, give just about enough room, which Couple did, and gets the move done there.
Yep. But crucially here, I have to say that, sorry, not crucially, I don't know why I said that, but Moto does seem to have, didn't intend to go for that move. I think he was just caught out by Couple braking a bit early, because you saw him squirming a little bit. Oh, there's a yellow flag somewhere. And that is the spun Pro P again. Oh no, it's not. It's Wilster G. Oh, that's a shame. Black Sheep and him were having a battle for the ages. That is really sad.
But can he keep himself ahead of Shalala? Nope. But does come away with no damage. So no major losses with respect to that. But obviously he's lost about 10 seconds to Black Sheep now.
And not to mention his tires. They seem to be slipping and sliding all over in pretty much every single traction zone and braking zone.
Yep, the tire temps must be off the roof right now.
Yup. Rusty, is the telemetry not working for you?
Freeman's retired out of turn 7.
Yeah, he's retired, and I think that see, it's a safety car. It's a safety car. And this has worked out so well for both Black Sheep and for Myth, if I may say.
For Prakhar. It's best for Prakhar, in my opinion.
Yes, how could I forget?
Another 3 laps on those mediums. He should be having the best lap. I mean, he should be having the tire advantage. And Tanish so far has gotten it bang on. He said 2 safety cars, 1 VSC, 1 SC. I mean, if he was racing today and if he'd predicted this, I'm pretty sure he'd have done what Prakhar did so far.
Tanish man, get into poker. I think you've got a knack for it.
Tanish is actually one of the most talented drivers that I've raced against, and if he's got instinct like this, we are in the makings of a future world champion.
Indeed. Let's see if any of the drivers go for that black sheep esports line that we saw in qualifying. No, I think that'd be the wrong thing under the circumstances during the race here. But this has worked out fantastically for Brucker after having a poor qualifying by his own high standards. I think his safety car, as the chat and as my fellow commentators have pointed out, is going to be the game changer here for the top 4 drivers. But the safety car period also allows all of them to kind of start again, almost like a clean slate situation. They're all on the same tires. They're all going to be on similar, as in the tires are going to be worn the same amount. So it almost gives them a chance to kind of press restart and go again.
So it's just become a 10 to 12 lap shootout now, pretty much like that. Because everyone's on the same strategy now, apart from couple who decided to go on the softs. Interesting take if he can make those last for the next 13 laps.
It all really depends on how long the safety car stays out.
That is also a factor. Too bad it isn't the Aston Martin, though. The safety car, that is.
Winster's now, there's myth between him and Black Sheep, so if Myth gets the move done on Black Sheep early, that battle could heat up again. But now it's about if Myth can dispatch Black Sheep and Aditya soon and try to get behind Eccentric, we should be in for a great race from here on, because we've seen Trucker, he, like Black Sheep, defends really well. I think his understanding of the track and where to place the car into a corner is like pretty damn good amongst the grid.
And Rusty, sort of something you said about Prakar's consistency and his racecraft. You mentioned that he's the only driver to be on both podiums so far this season. Yep. Seems to be on for a third one from the back of the grid.
Let's not jinx it.
I'm not saying anything about the win. I'm just saying that the podium does look likely for the man in P1 currently. And between us and the people watching the stream, he's in a Ferrari, so we all want to see him do well.
Easy there, Mara, easy.
I'm not biased, but you're biased.
We're not rooting for the driver, we're rooting for the car.
I'm just saying, I think on our podium view, the Scarlet will just look good. That's all I'm saying. I'm just a fan of the color red, not a fan of the team or the driver. I'm not biased. Anyway, back to more relevant Formula 1 conversation. Great. I think how many penalties do Aditya? I'm very surprised to see the entire grid keeping it fairly clean on penalties. But I do feel we will see a few faster laps coming in, given the Moto set his lap on very heavy fuel. And the safety car is coming in this lap.
Is coming in, yeah. So Trucker's now got to continue using all of this luck or experience he has to ensure that he gets away just about right, because it is a long straight, the start-finish straight. Start-finish comes pretty early into the corner as well. Last time round we saw Myth get the better of Eccentric on the restart. So again, it's going to be super crucial, this restart. Saying the obvious, but
you can lead us away on this restart period then, since your Ferrari boys are in the lead.
Backflip has hit the back of Aditya, and Prakhar is taking it all the way to the line, and Aditya gets completely mugged because of that. Myth also is now under threat. But he sort of recovers down the inside of Black Sheep right now.
Gets a 5-second penalty, not quite sure why.
He should get that removed if in fact it was a unfair penalty. I'm interested.
Meanwhile, Myth gets the move done, or there's Charleroi spun around.
Yep. Well, you've heard the saying, safety cars breed safety cars, and Aditya's picked up 2 5-second penalties, which has taken his tally from 3 seconds to 13 seconds. That's honestly, that's terrible. There's no other way to put it. That is honestly terrible. He's doing.
pretty damaging.
What
too.
I think happened is Prakhar, everyone expected Prakhar to take off at the exit of turn 15, but he did not. Eccentric could react to it and moved to the inside line, but then Aditya went into the back of Prakhar and Black Sheep went into the back of Aditya. I mean, that's the only logical explanation I can try and work out in my mind, but this battle is back on Eccentric trying to reclaim what was his, what he must be feeling should have been his right now, but Prakhar's up there fighting.
Tell you what, with that 5-second penalty that Prakhar is carrying right now, which seems to have been an incident at the safety car restart, as you said, he was just bunching up the pack, and I think Eccentric might try to get the move done here, using his overtake, just swings to the outside. Ooh, a little bit of contact there between the two drivers. I think that was fairly kind of...
I'm sorry, Myth gets the move done on Aditya on the straight way before the braking zone as well, and now he must be rubbing his hands if he could, but he clearly cannot right now, but you get what I'm saying.
If I had told you... Oof! I think there's a bit of contact between the three couple, putting his car in all the right places, but Black Sheep still, I think, taps the diffuser off the Alfa Romeo. I can't keep track, there's just so much happening on on the circuit right now.
Oh, that's Moto into the back of Wilster.
Yeah. Luckily,
It looks like both of them got away without damage. If we could go on board Moto, does not have telemetry public, so we do not have that confirmation for sure. Right
does
now.
Eccentric have damage? Can you see if he's got damage or not?
No, Eccentric's clean.
That's good. That's good. I was hoping that the incident with Prakhar didn't cost him end play any part of his end plate, because now we have a battle of the titans up front.
Yeah, luckily for him, it was his tire which went into the side pod, so no damage for him there.
Yep.
But now we've got DRS enabled. Myth is 6 tenths behind Eccentric, who in turn is 8 tenths behind Prakhar. But right board, we are on board Black Sheep, who looks down the inside of couple, but nowhere close enough to get the move done now. But he will have DRS along this straight now.
He is a very mature driver, Black Sheep, and I'm sure that he identifies that couple is on soft tires at this point. So the race will probably come back to him, or the position rather will come back to him towards the end of the race in the last few laps.
Battle for the race is back on. We wrote it off when there was collision between Myth and Eccentric, but here we are back again, folks. Ferrari, Williams, and the Haas back at it.
No commentator has ever said that in real life until now. Ferrari, Williams, and a Haas fighting for the race win, but
I think that did happen at Mugello. I'm not sure.
But not for the race win.
Yeah, not for the race win, that's for sure.
But as it goes in life, it's never over till the fat lady sings. So we will see how this pans out for all three drivers.
Yep, Eccentric, if he can nail his exit out, he should get this move done. 4 tenths with the DRS should give him a couple of tenths, and then it comes down to who spams how much of their ERS.
Eccentric is crucially very low on his ERS, because both of them, and Myth is sitting pretty, oh no, he's not, at 70%. I'm sorry gentlemen, but I think this race could go to Ammo Myth very, very quickly.
Yep, so Myth is, yeah, but the problem is the two cars in front of him are fighting. It becomes a matter of when will he be able to make the move. Oh, they touch over there coming out of turn 4. Both of them get squiggly, but and that lets Myth through.
Yep. Now all Myth has to do is use a bit of that ERS and forgive my French, but F off into the distance.
It's going to be a case of not drop a gear and disappear, but drop some energy and disappear, because that's how the times are changing.
This is a beautiful shot of Babaji and Moto going into turn 10, but Babaji gets the move done. He actually makes a position on Moto, which who as we know is a very, very good driver.
Yep, can we go back on board the fight for P2?
Of course.
Yeah, because Eccentric got super close to Prakhar. He was within 2 tenths. gets a good exit using all of that slipstream. Black Sheep unfortunately has disconnected. Disconnected? What? Okay, it was in Black Sheep.
It was
Trucker eccentric around the outside. Trucker breaks late and eccentric with a brilliant switchback. Can he nail this exit? Keep it clean. Ooh, Trucker's gone into the wall. It's all gone wrong for him on the exit of turn 3.
Entirely sure if he's got damage there, but judging based on the speed of the impact, he may potentially have front wing damage.
Yep, and that looked like an unsafe re-entry as well, so that's not going to be good for him in the steward's room after race. Oof, the roller coasters of an F1 race. 1 lap ago, he'd be sitting tight, thinking of a race win, and all of a sudden it's back to damage limitation.
And I need not bring Mara back into the conversation, but for a brief period of time here, there will be no red on the podium, Mara.
Okay, fair enough. Well played. But can we just appreciate the dark horse of Helium? He's just come into a podium position from not absolutely nowhere, but he's done incredibly well to pull that Mercedes up, taken advantage of the situation, and right now he is he's gained 11 positions up to a podium position in that Mercedes. Kudos to him.
Yeah, mega drive there from the other Mercedes driver. His teammate just behind him, currently sitting on a penalty, but a complete U-turn in terms of I'm a Mitz race. He went from having an incident with Eccentric in the opening laps, a brief exchange between them, damage. It seemed like he was down and out, and we very boldly claimed here that it was Eccentric's race to lose, and then safety car happened, and then everything got turned upside down. So it's going to be squeaky butt time going into the last 6 laps of this race.
Tricky, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be sweaty.
Did he even get the move done on Eccentric? Or is that a glitch?
Yes, Helium has gone ahead of Eccentric. It can only happen that Eccentric made a mistake somewhere.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, by turn 8 he was ahead, so not quite sure where that happened.
This is also providing Myth with a chance to pull away. If we could go back to the interval cams, he's probably about 8 or 9 tenths clear, and oh well, never mind. He's nearly 3 seconds clear now of the 2 drivers behind him, and he's gone from losing a grasp on the top step of the podium to now firmly having at least one hand on the trophy, if not both of them.
So I just went back to the YouTube stream and I saw the move by Helium, and boy was that a move. He gets the run out of turn 3, and just about in the last moment right before the braking zone, he dives down the inside, just about had enough traction and grip to get the move done on Eccentric, but now this traded places again.
Yep, it's sort of like, I think you described that like the Sebastian Vettel move on Bottas. Oh my god, that was a lot of contact between the Red Bull and the McLaren, but it seems to be tire-to-tire contact. But coming back to what you were saying, Rusty, it seems to be a description of the Sebastian Vettel on Bottas move in Silverstone at the end of the Wellington Straight.
Yep.
But let's jump on board the battle for P2 right now. Eccentric will be eager to come back at the Mercedes. How often can you say Williams is going to come back at a Mercedes in Bahrain in race trim? This is absolutely berserk.
If you were to consider...
This is exactly what used to happen back then. Williams right at the top of their game.
Hopefully we'll be back there soon. Hope the new regulations shake up the field, but Eccentric hot on the tail of Helium, 2 tenths heading into the main straight.
Also, is there food for thought to think that Couple may have a chance? He is on 7-lap-old softs, but maybe, just maybe.
You know what this means actually. I think that Black Sheep really could have had a shot at P4. Because he definitely was following Couple through the field, and Couple's tires seem to be going off at this point. So It's really a shame. Black Sheep has had some bad luck, either with incidents or with the game itself.
I mean, if I were to be one of those Indian parents, I just blame it on his name. Who has the name Black? But it is what it is.
Wow. I think he should have said he should change his name to Black Cat. But yeah.
It would have made more sense he was driving the Mercedes, Black Sheep and a black Mercedes. Everything would have aligned perfectly from there.
Yep.
On a tanker side of things, that just sounded like, that could have sounded like so many other things. But Eccentric thinks about it round the outside, but gets the better exit. Can Helium keep him behind? I think he does through turns 12 and 13.
All this fighting is only going to help the rear pack catch up, and I think Eccentric.
Meanwhile, I'm sorry to cut you in, but meanwhile, can we just have a look at Myth? He's not even on the screen. He's just run away with the race lead.
And that's at least a 5.5 second gap there.
Yep.
Yeah, 5.8 seconds. This man is just in a league of his own. He was great on his ERS, played the long game, took advantage of a small mistake between Prakhar and Eccentric, and he's done pretty well to go off into the distance. As I say, that Moto through turns 1 and 2 gets past the Mercedes of Aditya and sets off in pursuit of Couple Ace.
Couple should be a sitting duck for the next 2 laps, as there's a battle 3-way through Red Bull, McLaren, and the Ferrari of Prakhar Watts, who's still running with damage.
I mean, kudos to
Still
Prakhar.
doing well to keep up with these 2 in front of him.
Kudos to Prakhar to actually put his head down and really push and fight with that broken front wing.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, the battle for P2 continues as well, while this battle for P5 is 3-way right now. I think Eccentric's really good through the second sector because he always seems to catch up to Eccentric from turn 6 to the entry of turn 12. He's always cutting the gap down to below 3/10. So it'll be interesting to see. It does not have a lot of ERS left.
I feel like being, I won't say stuck behind Helium, but his inability to get past Helium has affected his opportunity to maybe mount an attack on Myth, because now there's too large a margin.
Oh man, what was that? That was not that was not okay.
Those throw the
Fully Helium reacted and did not turn in too early, but that's definitely cost Eccentric more than it did.
Yep, and
Helium.
while we were watching that, Moto has gotten past Couple. As I mentioned, Couple's tires do seem to be at the end of their life. He tried something, didn't work, but he's still in a decent position.
Yep, absolutely. At the start of the race, I think he would have taken P5. So it's all about trying to keep Aditya behind him right now.
Yep. Now, if Eccentric is stuck behind Helium for too much longer, and they are fighting. Moto is placed pretty well to catch him. But I think he's 2.5 seconds in 2 laps. Yeah, he's running out of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
If he does catch up, he'll be leaving the margins very tight. It's going to be tight coming down to the line if he does manage to close up to Eccentric.
Right now, it's just about bringing his car back in. He's in a different pin code, postal code right now.
I think he's driving his car to the next Grand Prix we have. But Eccentric closer than he's been in the last lap to Helium, seems to have clawed back the gap. Can he go for a move here? Will he go down the inside here? No, he's going to leave it for the last lap. This is going to be a game of chess and ERS, folks, down to the last probably corner between these two drivers.
Could we have foreseen that by the time the last 9 laps had ended, that Myth would be nearly 10 seconds clear if it keeps going at this pace of the 2 drivers behind him? but you know that's F1. That's how unpredictable it can be.
Brewing right now. Number one is obviously the battle for P2, which we've been on board with. The second is the battle between Baba and Wilster G. Now, this is just going to be a formality because Baba does have that penalty. In fact, he's got 6 seconds of penalty, so it's just about a formality and bragging rights on track. But I'm sure every one of us would prefer to do it on track, even if we maybe get pushed down a bit later.
Yep, Eccentric did save some ERS over the course of the last lap, but gets a really bad exit. Cost him, but this finish could be a bit like Verstappen and Hamilton. Actually gets a great, somehow still is able to launch an attack. Can he go around the outside of turn 2? Thankfully, both of them keep it clean. Yep, I think that's that, unless Helium makes a mistake somewhere.
Yep. I think, Rusty, I feel so bad for jinxing Prakhar. Commentators...
Moto.
I mean,
Moto still done well to come back to P4.
Commentators are in a very bad position of needing to talk about drivers, but the moment they do talk about drivers, something tends to go wrong, and that honestly makes us feel like shit.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, driver of the day for me, I think it would probably be Helium for his fight back.
Yep. Babaji seems to have made a mistake. He's spun out. Black Sheep has gotten through back to P8. And Prakhar P9. I'm really happy that Prakhar is at least heading for points here. Because the man deserves it. He's had a brilliant drive. It's just that things didn't work out. Like I said, the battle will go down to the last corner between Eccentric and Helium. I'm sorry the volume just increased, but I am excited. Can Eccentric get him across the line? I doubt it, but this man is great on exits. And that seems to be done and dusted for the two of them. And the last possible gain can be Pro P on Madhav.
Madhav runs a little wide. Pro P on those softs. Can he get a good exit?
Black Sheep makes up a couple of positions due to Aditya's penalty, moves up to P7 as Pro P sends one up the inside. Ooh, it'll be a drag race down to the line. Although
Pro P's out of ERS. He was out of ERS. Yeah, that's a shame, but whew, let's take a breath. That was a fantastic race to watch.
That was absolutely, it was riveting stuff. It really was, right from start to finish. And
Yep.
I guess in a way, some of our predictions came true, but some of them didn't. But you know, that's fine. As Myth takes an unpredictable win, one that we wouldn't have said after his incident with Eccentric in the opening exchanges. But he does take the win in pretty dominant fashion, nearly 9 seconds clear.
Yep. 8 cylinders. Why don't you walk us through?
Just after crossing the line.
Why don't you walk us through the grid? 8 cylinders.
Well, I'm a Myth. On P1, we have Helium. Brilliant comeback drive from him after starting P14. Gets onto the second spot on the podium. Eccentric, who was pretty much touted to be the race winner today from a lot of us here in the commentary box, ends up in P3. Moto with a fantastic drive to finish in P4. Couple in P5. Wilster in P6. Black Sheep finishes in P7. Aditya in P8 after having unserved penalties. Prakhar in P9 after a fantastic drive got him to the front. Unfortunately dropped back because of some pretty unfortunate penalties. Baba G in P10 should have finished a little higher, but had a little sideways moment going into the last couple of laps. No more pro player in P11, Shalalak in P12, Freeman in P13, and Patnaik in P14. Final two drivers who did not finish the race. But yeah, driver of the day, folks, gentlemen, in the commentary box.
My opinion. Seem to have such a quiet race, did not battle a lot, and that seemed to have worked out for the better at the end. When the crunch time came, he was the one who got most done and held Eccentric back for all those laps. That's no easy feat either, especially around Bahrain. So brilliant drive by Helium.
It's a whitewash. I think it's a whitewash in terms of who we choose as driver of the day. I'm torn between Amomit and Helium, but just the sheer underdog effect that Helium brought to us and fighting with the best that is Eccentric. You have to give it to him.
On the bright side, 3 races in, 3 different winners, lads.
This season is turning out to be a belter.
2012 all over again, isn't it? 8 different pole sitters in the first 8 races, 8 winners in the first 8 races, something crazy like that. Anyways, those in the chat, please let us know who is your driver of the day as we start to get some of the drivers in for the podium ceremony. I think Rusty, you should be able to handle this one.
Let's start off with Eccentric. So many questions to ask you because of the race you had. You were battling for position for pretty much every single lap of those 29, apart from the safety car lap. First, tell us what happened during the virtual safety car restart because you lost a position.
Yeah, I just got caught napping. I let Delta go to green and he just took advantage and it was a fair move on him.
And frustrated about finishing third behind Helium, you felt like you had more pace and he was able to defend.
Yeah, definitely. The safety car basically ruined an easy win. Then the whole race I had this random screen freezes every twice a lap that kept like every time I would just teleport back like 3-4 times, which cost me a battle between me and Helium. So yeah, very frustrating race, but it is what it is.
We get those fixed. Meanwhile, let's move on to Myth. Congrats on your first win of this season. Midway through, when you had that with Eccentric, it felt like your race was done, your battle for the end. But the safety car, it wasn't the easiest because when you did pit, you came out behind in traffic. And at the restart, I think you were P4 or P5. But what enabled you to get to the front of the pack so quickly after the safety car came in?
Yeah, first of all, it's been a while since I've been here. But about the race, yeah, like I think when we had that contact, I was a bit annoyed, but anyway, I had to pit that lap. It would have been worse if I had just come out of the pit and lost my front wing. So that was, I think, 5 to 6 seconds. And then once I came out of the pits, I had to pass a few people, but in the end, they just pitted.
Yep.
I think when I came out, it was around 7 seconds. I reduced it to around 5.5 for the safety car. Especially that last lap, pushing a bit, trying to close down the gain about half a second, and then the safety car came out. So
Yep.
I had to close the cars, but still I had I think 2 cars ahead of me, and I took care of Black Sheep in this first race, and I think Aditya was the next lap as well. I just tried to not lose a lot passing those 2 cars because I knew Eccentric was trying to overtake Trucker as well.
Yep.
Once I got past these 2 people, it was just a DRS train, and I was just being patient. Like I knew Electric was gonna try overtake Trucker, and I saw Trucker having a 5-second penalty, so I didn't see any use of even trying to use overtake or anything, and I just stayed back, hoping that both of them would fight and maybe I could get a better exit off somewhere and overtake them, and that's pretty much what happened. They both had an incident and I took advantage of it, and after that it was just quite easy because Eccentric got held up behind Helium, and I didn't have any dirty air, so I could maintain.
Yeah. Just a follow-up question for you, Myth. I mean, there were 2 crucial points or turning points in your race. Number one, obviously the contact with Eccentric, and number 2 was the double overtake on Prakar and Eccentric as well. I think you walked us through the latter one, but walk us through the first one at turn 1. What exactly happened? Because I'm sure both of you were aware that it was the end of your stints, and what exactly went through your mind when that incident happened? How did it happen? Because we didn't really catch the braking zone on camera.
Yeah, so actually I was gonna pit at the end of that lap. I faked the pitch and went straight. He used all of his overtake trying to pass me. He went to the inside. I broke later on the outside, tried to go around the outside, but I think both of us had a bit of a tank slapper, and unfortunately, I hit the side pod of electric. I mean eccentric, and I mean, it was annoying, but I just had to keep my head down because I felt I had better pace, especially through the race. It was just annoying because I was held back by the dirty air, and I couldn't really make a move. It was too far away, and he had really good pace through the last sector,
Yep.
and I had really good pace through the first two sectors. So it was annoying to couldn't really do anything. So I just had to play the and just save my tires and stay behind him, hoping that his tires would come to the end. And I think in the virtual safety car, I caught him napping. I overtook him there, but it was a good battle.
Congrats on the win. I think that's a great way to summarize your race. But probably moving on to Helium. Rusty, 8 cylinders. Do you have any questions for the biggest, or what I think for me and Rusty as well, is our driver of the day? And I think the entire commentary box agrees that Helium, congratulations on P2. Incredible drive and great defending from the man who's leading the championship. Yep. Any questions, folks?
So firstly, walk us through your defense in laps. Like, when did you realize that a podium would be a reality? Because I'm pretty sure you might have been disappointed with your quali starting P14, but when did you first realize that a podium was a possibility, and what was going through your mind during those final few laps when you were battling tooth and nail to try and keep P2?
Well, first of all, I actually retired from quali because I wanted to start last with the hards, but that didn't really work because I got damage. As for the last laps, I was trying to keep, I was like behind Prakhar and Eccentric at the time, and they were fighting. And I saw that Eccentric was using his battery because his rear light was flashing. So I knew he was under 10% and I had 50, around 50. So as soon as they had their contact and Prakhar crashed, I started pushing, and I just tried to make him use as much as of his ERS so that he would go into zero and I would still have left some. So after that, I think he tried to defend me on turn 1. So I just I didn't exactly fight him in turn 1. I don't know why he was going on the defense. So I just tried to get on the traction and take him on turn 4. And I think he thought that I was going to go on the outside because he was trying, I don't know, he was weaving or something, I have no idea. But yeah, after that it was very hard because obviously he's one of the fastest, but I'm pretty sure he had no pace on those medium tires and he had no ERS also. So yeah.
That's brilliant to be able to take in all of that information and process it. Congratulations on that podium, and I hope to see you on a lot more.
Thank you. I'll try my best.
Yep.
Well, I had a question for Eccentric about his championship, but I think he had another commitment. Myths, where do you feel you stand in the championship battle? Do you think that you are definitely a contender and probably the favorite, or do you think Eccentric has the measure of you so far?
Honestly, I don't really care about the championship. I'm just here for enjoyment, and I think that's why we league race at the end of the day. So enjoying it.
Well, congratulations on the great race and the great win. Hopefully, you not caring about the championship leads to one race at a time. So best of luck for that, and again, congratulations to Helium as well. Great podium, completely unexpected, and definitely the driver of the day for us. So thank you so much, folks. Tuning off from IRC are Rusty, 8 cylinders, and myself, Marinello. So we'll catch you next week. Please tune in for the tier 2 race, tier 2 and tier 3 race tomorrow.